You are listening now to the Spirituality Now podcast, the show that is solely focused on practical spirituality, leadership, and mindset skills with the aim and purpose of supporting you master your life. Welcome to the Spirituality Now podcast. Welcome to the Spirituality Now podcast. I am your host, Ivonne Delaflor. We're back in Zoom. You know, when you see us on Zoom, in Zoom, on, in, on, it's always an opportunity for me to just conjugate the English verbs in and on, above and below. It's kind of a universal law crafted for a Mexican experience, right? But whenever you see us on Zoom, I believe that's the correct word, is because our guests and incredible teachers, they are living in Australia or in Serbia or somewhere in the world where we need to match an appropriate timing for them, you know, because we want to make it that it works for all of us. So when you see us on Zoom, that's the reason. And that's the reason why you see my background blurry and probably, other stuff. But anyways, so welcome to the show this week. I'm very excited. I've been after this beautiful soul to come to my podcast, I believe, since I started the podcast. Since I have her with the microphone up right now and the camera off, I hope she's giggling when she turns on the camera because I've been after her, literally. Like I feel at this point in the podcast, I'm beginning to feel like a stalker. Like I'm after very specific key people that have touched my life, that I see the results they are creating in the community. We're bringing less and less people that I don't know, although I'm open for that. We receive a lot of invitations for, hey, do you want to interview this person? And I go with my intuition and say a yes. But right now, I'm feeling like there's going to be very specific messages that we need because of the unfoldings of the planet right now. And I truly believe that my guest today, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs love her, a lot of business owners follow her and learn from her, and you'll see why. Because today we're going to talk about a topic that I felt in my heart that we need, which is unlocking the power of the Muse. We have been so focused in very patriarchal, very kind of mechanical, very kind of, which I have nothing against, right? Because we all need systems. Honestly, if I had a better system in my podcast, the production will come out better. But I want to pay tribute to where tribute is due. But for the stages of humanity's development, for the contractions that are leading to expansions, for this birthing of consciousness, for this birthing, I don't want to call it awakening because that's a typical word every generation uses, I believe, right? But there is this summoning of the Muse that we need. And my guest, I really feel she's the embodiment of the Muse. Anyway, so I'm so excited because in this podcast, we have my dear friend, entrepreneur, business owner, NLP practitioner, just phenomenal and very spiritual oriented, but also very practical lady. Her name is Kylie Ryan. Kylie mentors coaches, entrepreneurs, and leaders, and she helps them literally align with their integrity and authentic magnetism to create a positive impact and live in prosperity. With over 2 decades, imagine, of experiencing coaching, she focuses on guiding individuals to overcome self-sabotage and pursue their dreams. Kylie's early work involved coaching women on mindset for weight loss and body image, and she has developed home study courses in this area. She's phenomenal for creation. Now she mentors aspiring change makers and creatives to bring their gifts into the world. Her qualifications include a BA in communications and writing, multiple certifications in NLP, Theta Healing, Hypnotherapy, meta coaching, quantum healing, and more. And she's a phenomenal singer too. I don't know, in her bio, there was not like, hey, I phenomenally sing like an angel. Anywho, Kylie Ryan is incredible as being a game changer herself. Her open mind and her open heart are such a breath fresh of air in business, in finances, in every single area of the human experience. With that said, I'm going to invite Kylie back into our Zoom meeting here and into the podcast. And Kylie, welcome to the show.
Ivonne, I'm honored. I'm so honored. Thank you, beauty. Oh, what a joy. What a joy to receive this incredible introduction, and to be on this podcast with you is just a pure joy. I love you so much, and you've helped me so much in my life and in my, awareness and teachings. It's just an absolute joy. I really consider you one of my dearest mentors and friends. So one day I'll get to hug you. It will be glorious.
And I'll get to give you your jacket. I was thinking, I have a jacket of Kylie here in my home that is like, I'm going to wear it until I'm going to charge it with energy until I see you, Kylie. We need to see each other physically. Like, we are such good friends and allies, and, we learn from each other, and we haven't met physically. And it's been years, right?
It has been years. It's been many years. And just such a joy to have you in my life. And I'm often very thankful of technology and the world that we live in, that we're able to find each other and find our allies all across the globe, and not be limited by where we can physically be and physically meet each other like we were in the old days.
Yeah, I often feel that social media and the internet and all of these technologies that sometimes people think it's artificial. Well, it is, and I don't think it's artificial. It's just technology. But it's a practice for us to start using our quantum physics powers. Eventually, we'll be like, I want to connect with Kylie. Tick, 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 project, bilocate, go to Australia.
Telepathy.
Exactly. You know this because you are it. So, Kylie, thank you so much for your kind words. Welcome to the show. Plus, anyone if you follow us on Spreaker, Spotify, everything, I highly recommend that you follow us on YouTube. This is a newfound love again that I had. I used to be in YouTube at the beginning of the YouTube era, and I quitted it, and I shouldn't, but I did. But now we're back. I haven't pushed all my stuff there yet, or my presence, but I think it's a beautiful platform. But the most amazing part of YouTube is that you can see our guests. And I highly recommend you seeing Kylie. Every single one of my guests, they are just gorgeous, and she really embodies the power of the Muse. But let's start with the interview, Kylie. I prepared some questions because I've been so eager to interview you. I've been interviewing people from your country, Australia, and I've been like, well, is Kylie going to say yes? I got to bombard her. WhatsApp, Facebook. We did it. We kind of corner you. That's the truth. I had to corner Kylie to come into the podcast, which is called Spirituality Now, but it should be called like Faith in Action. Make it happen, no matter what.
Faith in Action.
But beloved Kylie, let's start with your journey. You're an incredible entrepreneur, business owner, mother, phenomenal leader and guide in all of that. But I do wanna. I don't know. Well, I know some things, but we keep them private, right? Because sessions. But what is a little bit of the journey? Where does Kylie come from? Who was Kylie as a child that has sustained so pristine and so purely that Muse factor in her life? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Oh, you're very sweet. A little bit about my story from my childhood. Well, I grew up on, my mum was a horse rider and a horse trainer, and my dad is a chef. Well, he's not currently, they're both retired now, but was a chef when I was growing up. And so I grew up on a farm out in the kind of outer suburbs of Sydney. And so I had horses when I was there's photos of me like riding ponies when I'm 2 and 3, like kind of my mum holding onto my leg and keeping me safe. And so I grew up with lots of animals and lots of kind of time in nature and lots of quiet time. And she had, a very big vegetable garden. And my mum was kind of a real, she's very much a kind of innocent nature spirit in many ways, and also very pragmatic, land, based on the land and kind of knowing how to ride and train horses. And so I spent a lot of time, because obviously training horses, and my dad is a chef. He used to work like 6 days a week and was out of the house for a long time. So I spent a lot of time alone as a child with animals and with my sister. And so I kind of had, I guess, quite a magical childhood in that way, because I kind of was very connected to my kind of clair gifts and clairaudience, and would kind of connect in with my imaginary world with like fairies and nature spirits, and spend a lot of time kind of in nature as a child. And then in school, I was very accomplished and kind of just really excelled at school, and was very, I don't know, I was kind of one of those people that people would always talk to, and I had a lot of friends, but I was never kind of very much I was kind of one of those people that kind of went between lots of different groups and was kind of on the outskirts of groups, and also friends with the teachers. And I just kind of was kind of friends with everybody. But I never really felt like I was I don't know, like I was in with regular humans to a degree. So I was kind of always a little bit off with the fairies. I'm realizing now, Ivonne, like reflecting, one of the kind of key seminal books in my childhood that I started reading when I was about 11 or 12, because I did a book report. Must have been 11, because I did a book report on it for year 5 or year 6, was Clan of the Cave Bear, which was a huge book at the time, fictional book that was kind of historically researched about this young girl that was orphaned and taken in by a group of kind of a Neanderthal tribe, and she was raised by the shaman woman. And so this story was quite a like strong influence in my childhood, and these huge books that I read that were kind of way beyond the regular reading rate of an 11-year-old, very much influenced my consciousness. And so I'm realizing now there was almost like a shamanic training that I had through going through those books at that time, and then also spending a lot of time in nature. And I even, like the girl in the story, Ayla, used to have a sling that she would kind of, use to hunt with. And I remember, like, I made my own sling and I was practicing the sling out in the fields and things like that. And so I just had a kind of a sense of mystical sensibilities. And I very much was aware of that all through my childhood, and then kind of would lock into school and academics, and loved reading and loved literature and all of those things. And I would read a lot of kind of fantasy novels about magic and dragons and witches and wizards and all of those things. And it was a very kind of rich, mythic childhood that I had, because I spent so much time alone, and I was always kind of immersing myself in these books. And so that was a big part of my childhood. I guess that's the childhood version.
Yes, let me. It's really rich for me to hear this. I didn't know, first of all, that of course you can ride horses and train horses. Of course, I always saw you like Diana. Do you know Diana, the hunter? Like I always say, like, if there was an army of women, I'm joining the ranks of Kylie. You have a phrase that says "ready for peace and ready for war." But when you are sharing, I just interviewed Francisco Jara, another incredible entrepreneur, philanthropist, doing incredible things for really the world. And he was talking about, it's like every podcast, the previous podcast prepares me for the next. He was talking about the importance and powers of mythos, the mythology, the mystical. And you said, I wrote it down here, that you grew up with mystical sensibility. Kylie, even just saying that, my whole body, I feel a recognition in my body about that, and how powerful it is that in the midst of the things that happen to all of us, right? The challenges, the upbringing, some bullying, some abuses, some whatever it is, like is the human trials, right? You were able to tap into this realm and go into this vortex of a book and not lose connection with that which is, it's so sacred. And again, you called it the mystical sensibility. I think just like there is clairaudience and clarividence and all of those powers, I think this is one power, mystical sensibility, right?
Yes.
But what I like of this is that there is a invitation in your voice when you are sharing this for all of us to approach life in that way. And another thing that I want to tell you is that I've been interviewing, a lot of incredible teachers, from Zen to Buddhism to people that they sent us to interview that I had no clue that they are, survivors of this or that. And all of them for some reason, once they tap into this mystic, and they start remembering their childhood, what you are saying, like, I had a teacher that loves the same game that I used to love when I was little, Dungeons and Dragons, or the Jedis, or like we grew up in an era where the mythical and the mystical and the initiatory, even the games, were so poignant for our timeline. I mean, and you are like 10 years younger than me. You are what, 30? Did you see what I did? Guys, did you see what I just did? I'm 52. Okay, I'm going to confess in the podcast. Doesn't matter.
I'm 43.
see, okay, a decade. So you have a decade, still the mystic there is, because I grew up, I'm like, she's not going to know what Dungeons and Dragons is, but you're going to know that. But there was still those decades where like there was a mystical vibe. There was this ocean of preparedness for what and who we were meant to become in order to help the next generations, or the people that could not access that mystic, that mythos, that muse that you are in such a way. So I just wanted to say that. So that's beautiful, Kylie. So let me ask you something. And after your childhood, of course, you're married, you have kids, you live in Australia, correct?
Yes, I live in Australia. Yes.
And then how did you, we are going to talk about getting out of the closet, in the spiritual closet, because I don't even like that word, but eventually we'll go there. But what inspired you from your childhood, and all of that? What inspired you to dedicate your life to helping others along with their integrity and authentic magnetism? That is something that you say consistently while keeping that mythos. How do you do it? Because I see very powerful entrepreneurs that follow you and that learn from you. I'm like, how did she do it? Like what? It's like people like, no, that's wrong with you. It's Kylie. So tell me about it. How was the transition? How was like, okay, I'm married, I'm into business, and I want to help people align and magnetize. Yeah. How does that happen?
It's interesting actually, because it kind of that transition from, my childhood leaving home, and then in my early 20s, I kind of, in my early 20s, I went through probably from about 16 to 23 or so. I put on a lot of weight. My parents divorced, and I put on a lot of weight, and I started partying a lot, and I kind of left home, and my dad got remarried. And there was a lot of kind of upheaval in my life at that time. And I had a lot of coping mechanisms, had a lot of like unhealthy coping mechanisms. And I desperately wanted to be a singer. And my mom is also a singer, and has sung for many years, kind of semi-professionally in bands and what have you. And I always grew up, I was singing as well. So I kind of had the horses, and I was singing and school. And then when I left home, I went to move in with my singing teacher, actually, who became like my mentor and my older sister almost. And I kind of lived in a basement underneath her house and her family. But she was involved in a singing school, and her business partner and her went through their kind of trials and tribulations. And eventually, like, it was a really beautiful community for me in that period of time. And then eventually they broke up their partnership. And the other partner I became very close to as well. And she went and got involved in NLP. And that's how, so neuro-linguistic programming, and that's how that kind of came into my life at 23 after I had been singing, but I had kind of put on all this weight and I was like very positive and kind of vivacious and outgoing and optimistic, but I was also kind of secretly had this deep pain and was kind of hiding it, I guess, with my optimism. And the NLP sessions, which was the first kind of start of my, I guess, official personal growth journey, even though I had always been interested in like speed reading and mystical subjects and things just out of interest. That was my first kind of training. And the first time that I had one of those transformational sessions, Ivonne, it's kind of like, I like that that analogy of, you know, in those old movies where like in Alice in Wonderland or The Wizard of Oz or, you know, A Wonderful Life, where it goes from black and white into color and everything just like, everything changes and it's suddenly vibrant. That's what my first session was like. And in the time since that, then I, you know, lost 20 kilos. I got, you know, stopped taking drugs and partying. I got off, you know, got out of that kind of circle and paid off my credit card debt, which was like, you know, in the $20,000 credit card debt, and met the man who I'm now married to. I started singing professionally in a band, and all of that happened in the space of a year after doing this transformational work. So it's like my life kind of went forward and like shot out of a rocket basically. And I was like, wow, this is so amazing. And people kind of didn't recognize me because I lost so much weight so quickly. And I had always been kind of healthy and slim as a child, and then just kind of put on a lot of weight with puberty and my parents' divorce and the stress from all of that, high school and what have you. But then I kind of came back into healthy and slim and in love and happy and, you know, all of these things within a very short space of time. And I had always been one of those people that people come to and kind of tell their life story to or ask for advice or that type of thing. And now I had, after that experience, I was like, I want to learn this and I need to know this and I need to soak up everything I possibly can about the technical skills of human transformation and how to help people in this way. And so that was a huge kind of first unlocking piece. And so I guess the first version of helping people find their magnetism and really discover their muse was my weight loss coaching, which was like the first decade of my life as a coach. I had this kind of double life, Ivonne, where I would coach women by day in a small kind of coaching practice, and I would help them with their mindset for weight loss. And the core paradigm shift of the mindset for weight loss kind of piece was, you know, most women at that time and still today try and shift their body from the outside in and go, I'm going to, you know, do this diet, or I'm going to use liposuction, or I'm going to do excessive exercise, and try to kind of hate themselves and force themselves and punish themselves to change their body shape. And the paradigm shift of that is that my kind of message that whole time was, hey, you actually need to learn to love yourself exactly as you are and nourish yourself from the inside out, and then your healthy body will emerge. And so that was kind of my coaching by day, was helping people shed their emotional weight and start to, I guess, open into loving themselves and seeing their own true essence and letting that guide their life and shape their health and all of that. So that was the daytime work. And then at nighttime, like 3 or 4 nights a week, it's kind of very clear, like yin yang type of vibes. At nighttime, I would go and sing in nightclubs, and like 4 nights a week, I would go around all of the best. Like, this was when Sydney was popping with nightclubs and bars. And it was like, it's changed over the years, and now it's not quite as amazing as it used to be. But there was this real vibe. And And I would sing in nightclubs and bars, and I would freestyle with DJs. So I would just turn up and kind of plug in my microphone, and they would be playing lounge music and house music. And I would improvise for hours on end, sometimes with a roving microphone, and roam around the club or the bar, talking to people, and then singing a song, and then, grabbing a drink. And so I would kind of have my water in a champagne glass and wander around singing and just kind of mingling with the crowd and being a muse, basically. Basically, I didn't realize at the time, but I was being a muse. And so I had this kind of, these two aspects of my life that were very expressive and helped me kind of express and expand these two aspects of my personality as a healer, and then as a singer, performer, entertainer as well.
Wow. So I am meeting, I knew it, but I didn't know it at this extent, the original version of Superman Clark Kent in a woman. Like, you could take off your glasses and then in the morning you're healed. This is phenomenal. So Kylie, but I so agree with you, the physical weight. I had a time in my life that I think I got, because of the people that I was with, it was just all the internal choices I was making were leading to extra weight, emotional weight, physical weight, every single thing that I felt, that it was wrong. I kept overriding it. I kept overriding my intuition. And like that, as soon as I made the right choices, it's amazing. It was 10 pounds. So I lost the 40 pounds, right? It's been a very public journey too, because I'm very public about that. But how do you get, in this magnetism and alignment, how do you get people to love themselves when you can be better? Like higher achievers like you and I, and people that just are in the improvement modality, right? Like I guess self-improvement sometimes is so catchy because it can override your intuition or your femininity or the muse, and you start doing and hustling. How do you help people not only to love themselves in the process, a CEO, the owner of a corporation? How do you get them there? What do they have to do? What do I have to think? What do I have to let go of? Because even though I can love myself with extra 100 pounds, I'm still gonna be like, yes, and I want to get down, or I want to be kinder, or I want to have more money, I want to pay my debts, and that's all external. But as an example, how do you get people there?
Oh, it's such a journey and such a paradox, and it's such an interesting place to play as a healer and change maker. And really, when I reflect on kind of my 20 years in this space, I've been doing the same thing, just in different variations and different ways of doing it. And I guess the core shift that I really love reminding people of is everyone knows what it's like. Even if you've never had your own kids, everybody knows what it's like to look at a baby and just be enthralled and in awe of the innocence and the vibrancy and the aliveness and the just beauty of a little baby. And so I'll kind of say, hey, have you ever had any interaction with a baby? Like, the innocence and the aliveness, and how beautiful they are and how precious, and their little laugh and their smiles, and you just want to kind of squish them and hold them and cuddle them and, just shower them with love. And then, yes. And then I remind them, well, hey, like a baby can't do anything, can't make money, poops and needs to be cleaned up after. It's like it doesn't add any production value. It doesn't, it's like it's not making anything. It's not bringing in any income. So by all of the kind of modern metrics of success, you need to do this of kind of capitalist production self-worth things. It can't do any of those things, and yet you realize that it is intrinsically valuable and precious and should be nurtured and kept safe. And that kind of usually like drops the penny when I say, hey, remember you were a baby like that at one point too. You came in with that innocence and that beauty and that divinity that was just so shining out of you as a baby. And at some point along the way, you know, through no fault of your own, through your carers doing the best that they had the ability to do, at some point along the way, you learned that your worth was conditional upon what you could do or what you could achieve or how you looked or what clothes you wore or what, you know, blah, 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 whatever are those external things. At some point you learned that your worth was conditional. And that's the first, you know, that's the first break, I guess, is that point.
No, you took me there. You know, you're such an eloquent speaker. I was already going there. I was going to tell you that I don't like to squeeze babies, but my dog, I could totally relate. I would like want to squeeze my dog. I want to be with him. And he doesn't give me value. I mean, it's like there's, you know, the return of investment is internal. Is joy. It's like being of service to him. But I love how, because I can see how very high entrepreneurs, business owners, billionaires, millionaires, all that stuff, when you walk them through that and in the ways you do, Kylie, it's like they can arrive there in like kind of open, like remove their armor, right? Because we've been building armors of protection, of survival, of performance. We're such performance-oriented individuals. Like when I perform like this, that equals my value, which is not true. Right? It can get you somewhere, but at the expense of what? Right? In the performance, if you truly are who you are and tap into that, what you're saying, I mean, I can see you unleashing the power of the muse in everyone. So talking about that, you know, so you are very, very skilled. Just your language right now, like the capitalism and all of that, I was like, I gotta up my level of communication here. But because you are so savvy, right? Like so skilled in business and neurolinguistic programs that it's very well accepted worldwide, right? Richard Bandler, Tony Robbins, all of them, they put that neurolinguistic programs is highly accepted worldwide. Yes. All businesses, you know, it's like NLP, yes, we do it. Like mindset training, we do it. How do you, because you have such a background of spiritual Theta Healing, all of the modalities that you can use to guide people into their most fulfilling self. How do you integrate? When is it the time to begin to like drop the water in the roof of I got it, I control of what spirituality will do to them?
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful to reflect on this, because this has been a journey for myself as well, is, you know, realizing that everything is spirit, and everything, you know, that spirit informs and creates matter, and it creates our awareness, and our frequency, you know, creates our experience. But it's interesting to think about, you know, in our modern society, which is, you know, Western culture is secular. And so that separation of church and state, and the, you know, I guess the decline of modern religions, or the decline of people attending practice with modern religions, because the religions kind of didn't really keep up with the times of like what keeps people engaged and what keeps people coming back. And so that kind of decline, and I guess the rise of scientism, and the rise of, you know, obviously science is very important, but the rise of people, I guess, prioritizing logic and external types of ways of knowing, of like, is this validated? Is this proved? Does this count? Is this verified by science? Can almost feed that part that is afraid to drop into the mystery, and that is afraid to really connect with the deep inner knowing within yourself. And so I feel like the spirituality comes in every aspect of what I do and how I show up. And so it's embedded in who I am and how I show up. And, even when I think to my singing days, the whole, and the particular type of singing that I was doing, I sang in bands and sang cover songs for many years as well. But the thing that I really loved was freestyling. And when you freestyle, it requires a flow state. It like you can't do it unless you're in flow state. And so in order to be in flow state, you have to drop the egoic mind, the judgments, the self-criticism. You have to just surrender and let the music and the song flow through you. And so in many ways, I feel like that's, just channeling a particular sound or a particular, whatever the music of the moment is like wanting to bring through. And so I feel like I'm very grateful for that chapter of my life in training me to be able to surrender that aspect of my mind and actually just go into flow state and let my words come out without second guessing myself. And so I feel like I probably bring that transmission to people that, hey, I've practiced this skill, and then by being in my presence, they can kind of tap into that skill somewhat. So that's one aspect of it. But I think there's also like just a permission frame of spirituality and accessing God, accessing source, accessing divinity and awe and wonder, without so much of the dogma of whatever religion or whatever, whatever the kind of mental constructs are. How can you actually just connect with your own sense of awe? How can you connect with your own experiences of synchronicity or experiences of grace that have happened in your life that everybody has? Everybody has these experiences of grace and awe. I think we just don't notice them. And we're so busy in our kind of mental world of like, I've got to do this and I've got to tick the boxes and I've got to produce. And we just get so busy that we don't actually allow ourselves to experience like the awe of, I don't know, seeing a little glisten on a dewdrop on a leaf when we're walking down the street, or, see the joy on our little puppy's face when we walk in the door, and just experiencing that, right? The joy of that overflowing love. And I don't know, I think it's bringing divinity into, not bringing, but noticing the divinity that is already there in the everyday moments, and realizing that you don't need an intermediary to connect with God and to connect with divinity or connect with spirit or source or whatever word you like to use for it, even if it's like the quantum field or, the infinite intelligence. I feel like that's a sense of awe that I was very blessed to have received from my mother, that she has that awe. And I feel like maybe that's a part of what I'm able to bring to others as well, that sense of awe.
Oh, wow. I want to say, wow. Oh, I could feel that awe. I could feel, when you said embedded spirituality, I think that's the next level of embodiment. I was like, this is the first time I hear embedded spirituality. It's a practice. It's who you are. And that flow state, of course, as soon as you say flow state, it makes sense to me that the people that ask for your support, your guidance, they're in the right hands, because of whoever accesses awe, accesses God. It is the access of awe is the access of God. Access of God truly is access of awe. It's one and the same. If we could call God a synonym, will be the aspect of awe, which is such a precious word, right? Such a precious word. And then another thing that I want to highlight, and I think this what you just shared, I think is so rounded that I'm going to ask you just a couple of more questions and we'll close it for now, but you said that in the secular world, that was so important, because I feel this is crumbling right now. We went all in, curious children, into the logos, the logistics, the systematic, how do you say scientific?
The scientific.
You said a word. I mean,
scientism. I said scientism, which is where science becomes its own religion and it becomes dogmatic as well.
Like, I'm like, I'm feeling that way. Wow, Kylie. Well, the scientism, it's, I even felt like, but I feel like as children, we explore, like, and we were all like, can this be proven? Can this be facts? But right now, what collectively is unfolding in this lifetime that we incarnated simultaneously in this lifetime is like it's not that, I don't subscribe like you do. I've seen, your post, my post, we're like cheering each other, like, yeah, I'm going to go to war with Kylie. I'm going to wear her jacket, But it's not that this the collapse of humanity. It's just like, as children, we wanted to explore this subject, right? Let's explore logos. Let's explore that. And then when we try to use it as the only one rule, the only one religion, that's why I feel also spiritual people that are very sectarian, they just crumble because they become so rigid. And whatever is rigid equals no movement. And what is no movement equals death. Life is movement. And you are talking about that flow. You're talking about this free, how do you call it? The free what?
Oh, freestyling, where I just make it up as I go along.
I love that, because Kylie, I'm going to ask you to give us a blessing with song, like freestyle. If you feel like it, I have not heard as beautiful a voice like yours, honestly. And I don't like to praise people exclamative. I'm very descriptive, but you have a very, I'm going to call it, I don't want to call it angelic, because I do love that you said, like, and I had I couldn't believe, like, and I was partying and all of that. I'm like, yes, this is my girl. We did the initiations. This is my lady. I will go in the army with her, army of light. Mm-hmm. But you talk about flow states, and I need to ask you, because people really, whoever I've spoken about you, when I meet you and when people see you out there and the comments and their testimonials, everybody says you're a muse. And I couldn't agree more. So why do you think in these times for humanity, what is experiencing politically, financially, the state of war that we have globally, the famine, the genocides, all of that, why, Kylie, do we need to unlock the muse within? And why do we need to meet or remember again the muse?
It's so important, Ivonne. It's so important because the muse allows us to unlock our own creativity and our creative impulse and our creative drive, whether it's to draw a picture or sing a song or play some piano or make a business or build a course or, create a shop or start a family. Like, all of that is creative impulse. And as we connect into our own inspiration, the muse, I feel, is the archetype of, the spark of God that inspires us to create. And, right? Like,
Kylie, you and I, each time you and I get together, I should give like a warning, a disclaimer for people. Like, and Kylie and I, we get together to talk or something, and we go into these states of like, oh, I mean, you just said the spark of God. You know what I saw? I had a vision right now, of like, how they depict in Catholic churches or the Holy Mother or the halos and these sparks and these crowns. Literally, I just felt like a flame coming out of the crown of God, and that was feminine, and that was the muse. And I went all in a tangent, but just keep sharing. I'm getting inspired.
That's it, right? It's like, that is I think we've been in, like, for the last 2,000 years, we've been in this version of a patriarchal God that we have created in our own image and that image has been of violence and retribution and, that if you don't do these things, you're going to go to hell. And there's like all of this. So it's like, do this thing. It's like this stern, unyielding and kind of hard taskmaster father type of God, like the Old Testament God. And what I see as the purpose of the Muse, and there's this psychedelic revolution that's happening around us as well, where people are connecting through the magic of plants to access their own internal states of awe and connect their own sense of divinity within. And I feel like those plants are muses as well of awakening the divinity through the feminine essence. So whether you want to call that the Sophia or the Magdalene, principles, or the, rose lineage or Grail priestesses, or those, like all of these different kinds of words, I think are speaking to the feminine aspect of God, the goddess, the fertility, the inspiration, it's like even after the most horrific war zone and suffering and death and destruction, after a pause, after the dust settles and the war is over, the rains come and the rains soak into the ground, and the seeds that are buried deep in the earth, eventually they start to grow again. And I feel like in some ways, this revitalization or resurgence of the Muse is a feminine aspect of God, the feminine aspect of creation, of Mother Earth, of the divinity that is coming through us in all these different ways to help us remember that we are creators and that we can create and that we are creating our reality. And we can create realities that are based on beauty and that are collaborative and that are connected to our divine innocence and seeing the divine innocence in another, like a mother, that sees the children of the world and can't help but see the face of her own child in every child. And coming from that loving feminine divinity place where we can create, I think is one of the most important things that we can do to heal the planet and actually create something that is beautiful and that is in harmony with nature as well.
Kylie, you moved me so deeply with this. I don't have more questions after this. I think, the presence of the Muse is felt. Yes, I was reminded, my former husband, which he, when I wrote a book called Divine Mother, he wrote the foreword for it, and he said, without us telling the story about the Divine Mother, half of the story of humanity is not told. And I think that the other half, right, like the true aspect of the wholeness of divinity that you are speaking of is exactly that, is what is going to help us recognize who we are, help us recognize what Jesus was able to recognize, like I and my Father are one. It's going to help us as women rise, as men rise, instead of being antagonistic to each other, the female, the male. It's going to help us access this non-dual, this new state of awareness where a lot of good evolution can happen for our world. Well, wow, Kylie, this is so deep. I'm feeling. Can you feel it? Like I'm like so expanded right now. I'm bathing in the power of your Muse. No, I do want to ask you two things. First, we would like for you to give a little blessing with your voice to the audience. If you feel like it, yes, you said yes. See how I do it? See how this is like total pressure, but no pressure because we're in the flow state. Number one, and two, is there anything that you could, like, if my audience, like, look at my ego, my audience, if the audience of the Spirituality Now podcast reaches out to you, we're going to make sure to put the website of Kylie or her social media. Yes. Is there any token, any gift, anything that if they mention Spirituality Now podcast, they get like a % discount or something?
Ooh, yes, yes.
I'm feeling so professional by doing that, Kylie.
So good. so good.
This is
so good. I love it. I love it. Okay. So for the Spirituality Now listeners, we could give a 10% discount on all of my all of my courses, all of the Heart Alchemy course is the new one that I'm about to launch. So that's, I think, the one that the Spirituality Now would love and get the most out of. And so, yes, I'll have a token there for Spirituality Now for people to get my Heart Alchemy course, which
I'm so grateful. This is like the best gift ever. I may use their own token. Like, I'm going to go in. But you guys, when you do listen to please listen to the whole podcast, right? Like, not like just, I'm just going to she's giving a 10% for, no, just make sure that you mention that you listen to the full podcast and that you heard the beautiful Spirituality Now podcast, 10% of her courses while you listen to the podcast. I'm like, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I feel so joy. Good. Okay, Kylie, let's bring the blessing.
Oh my goodness. Bring the blessing.
Like 30 seconds or so, and freestyle.
Freestyle. Don't cry no more. Don't cry no more. Even though it's scary sometimes, know that grace is always with you. Grace is always with you. And love, love is all around. Love comes from within. And you can love, and you can love, and you can love yourself, and you can love yourself, no matter what.
Kylie. Wow, what a blessing. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, you can love yourself no matter what. Beloved Kylie, thank you so much. Everyone, please give it a listen twice, 3 times. There's so much juice and so much muse and so much activations here. And we'll list, look, I can barely talk. I'm like, Kylie, just to end, I got Venerable Norbu Lama, a Lama that he lives in the residence of the Dalai Lama.
I am Alex.
Sorry for that, in the residence of the Dalai Lama. And he did an initiation live in the podcast. So I gotta, catch up with all of these things. But thank you, beloved Kylie. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We will put all her connections for you to reach out to her.
All the links.
And all the links. And thank you so much. We love you. I send you a big kiss. See you soon again with another incredible guest. Un besito. Adios.
We hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere where you prefer to listen to your podcast. Make sure to check the links to everything we mentioned in this episode. For more news, future or past episodes, or for any other inquiry, please visit our website at delaflorteachings.com. Once again, thank you for listening to the Spirituality Now podcast.